What's up, my friends? Welcome to this episode of the Wholehealth with Rob Carney Podcast. And on this episode, we have our guest, Zach Barney, the Soulfull Poet. So Zach's motto is to be loved now and howl his truth. And that's exactly what he does in this episode. So here he shares a story. We talk a little bit about what that motto means. We talk about what would love do now. We talk about his journey. We talk about all the cool stuff he's working on. And, Zach and I have been working together for, it must have been 4 months now. Quite a while. And we've really had incredible conversations. We talk on a weekly basis. And finally, we're like, you know what? We got to record one of these calls. So today is the day. This is the first recording of our weekly conversations, which will then be processed and created on a more regular basis moving forward. So I'm super excited for you to hear this episode with Zach, hear his wisdom, hear him share some of his poems. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. All right, everyone, without further ado, I'd like to welcome Zach Barney to the show. Zach, welcome aboard, my friend.
Hey, what's up, Rob?
Thank you for being here. And so I would love for you to share your story. Obviously, we've been chatting now for, how long has it been? Like 3 months, 4 months? Seems like a while.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the time's really flown by over quarantine and all the, chaos that's going on in the world at this moment. It seems like it just
Yeah, it
flew
really
by
does.
like so fast.
It really does. So
Uh,
we've been chatting on a weekly basis, and all of our conversations have been, I feel like I walk away after every conversation, especially our last one, just feeling recharged, refreshed, and ready to get back at life. Even if I'm feeling down or feeling foggy or whatever, I feel like we always have a great connection, have a great conversation. And so last time we were finally like, we got to record these calls because we got some good wisdom to share with the world. So I'd love for you to start off by sharing your story, your journey, and what's really gotten you into this space of mindfulness, of holistic living, and anything else you'd like to share.
yeah, definitely. So basically, I would say my journey really started when I was a kid. Growing up, I always wanted to you know, be a football player, be a professional athlete, and also like an astronaut. Also, like as a child, I always looked up to the universe and to the sky, and was like, all right, one day I want to go to space. Like I want to go explore the moon. I want to explore the planet as well, like travel the world, and as well like be an athlete. So like so my dream was as a kid was like everything, and it's really interesting. So going into college, I was playing football at Washington Lee University. So it's a D3 school as well. And basically that took me into more of, learning more about nutrition, movement, how to take care of my body at a young age. So everything like that I'm practicing now was already something that I was working on like my whole life, because to be able to be an athlete, you have to like be really committed to your training, to your nutrition, even to your education. So looking at it holistically, I think basically before I was looking more at like my mind and body, and then my spiritual journey. It's really interesting because that actually started at the end of college when in 2015 I decided to go from being in at Washington University in Virginia, like, normal life for a 21, 22-year-old. And I decided like, all right, I'm going to take this next year and just go travel to Brazil. And that was 2015, like 5 years ago. And that decision was like the decision that completely changed my life. And that's where I started my own like spiritual journey. I would say like this path to knowing myself, like opening up not only from like the mind and the body, but opening up the spirit, like, and really seeing things from a holistic way. And yeah, so even when I arrived in Brazil, in Rio, I could remember seeing the Christ the Redeemer statue, and at that moment I started like crying. And it wasn't like a physical cry, it was like a spiritual, the soul was kind of like signaling something like, oh, you're starting your journey. You're officially starting this journey. And it was like, wow, like there's no going back. And just like my journey has taken me to some amazing places. So I started in Rio in Brazil. And when I was there, I taught English in the favelas, learned Portuguese. Then I went back to the United States, graduated. Then I was like, all right, peace, peace, US. Like I went back to Rio for the Olympics in 2016 and stayed there for like 5 months. Then came back to the United States during the 2016 election. And that's where like something like hit me. Like it was like a deeper awakening when Donald Trump was elected, and I had, for some reason, like I had this feeling of just like deep depression. Like I could feel like the world shifting, like a big shift was happening, like in the world and within me as well. And so it was like 3 or 4 days of deep depression. Like I didn't talk to anyone for like 3 or 4 days, and like, it's never happened to me in my life, like such strong energy. But I was just journaling, and I was journaling like, okay, what can I do? What can I do? And then I was just writing, and I realized like I can't do anything. You know, I can't do anything to change the external situation from where I'm at right now. The most that I can do, the most effective change that I can make is within, and I can be the change and lead by example versus trying to tell other people like, all right, you need to change, you need to do this. And so that was a big moment in my journey where once that happened, I realized that that's when like my own awakening happened. I realized like, okay, so all I can do now is like work on myself. So I started really getting into meditation, more like vegan diet, not eating any animal products, working out, yoga, stretching, listening to podcasts, like everything at once, pretty much. And at the same time, I started, looking at teaching English as an option to travel. And so 2017, I ended up going back to Brazil to start teaching English in São Paulo in a school. And that experience was amazing because it gave me the space to, not only live and kind of detach from the United States in a way, but also to like observe myself and to work on myself in that period of time. And during that time, I was traveling through Brazil, and I met one of my best friends today, and we were just on the beach hanging out, chilling, like, messing with like slackline, just playing around, freestyling. And I didn't know like this person would be like basically one of my best friends for like basically for my life too. But in that moment I was like, whoa, this is amazing. Like I'm just meeting these cool people that are changing my life. Traveling around Brazil, I have space to work on myself as well. And so that kind of was like a really crazy moment for me, because in that moment, so my friend, his name's Troy Ursling, because I know, there's a lot of followers. I know the other Troys here. But he was telling me about this drink, right, from the Amazon called Ayahuasca. And he wrote an article after his first ceremony that he had in Rio, and like that ceremony literally, like his experience, how he talked about ayahuasca, completely changed my spiritual journey, because I was just like, okay, I need to do this it was just like, okay, being in the forest, like having this transformational experience where you're like feeling this connectedness with the universe and with spirit. And I was like, okay, I need to do this. So then the rest of that year, I was basically preparing myself for my first ceremony. And during that time, I came across Aubrey Marcus in his podcast, like during that period of time. And that was just like the preparation that I needed. Like, okay, listen to the experiences of other people and how to prepare. And so my first ayahuasca ceremony was one thing that really connected me for the first time with like my family again. After, time in college and doing all these different things, traveling, I felt really disconnected from myself and my family, even though I was on this journey. So it really opened up my emotions, my ability to really express myself fully, and be creative, and even like write poetry, which is something that's been a passion of mine. And so that ayahuasca, that was in the first ceremony was in 2018, and then basically all of 2018 was like lots of synchronicity. It was so beautiful, kind of like everything just flowed, like one thing to the next thing to the next thing to the next. And yeah, so like through that, I just really discovered myself, that through that journey of like, all right, discovering spirituality, discovering that connection with source or God for myself. And yeah, so like ever since then, I've just been really writing a lot of poetry. And at the moment, I'm in Colombia, which in Bogota, Colombia, and there's just so much energy of like the indigenous elders here, and just of the land in general, the mountains. You can really feel the energy. So I would say in the last few months, I've really just been connecting more with that spirit, like that indigenous spirit that's within myself, and also connecting with different communities, different people that are connected with the land and to practices of like South America. And additionally, like this has kind of led me into the path of mindfulness, because I realized that the two are the same. A lot of the indigenous communities are talking about mindfulness, they just have a different language for it. And it's just like Buddhism and Hinduism have their own spiritual practices. They're all kind of like the same, like from the same source of ancient wisdom. And so right now I've just been really diving deep into that. And that's like where my journey is like taking me to, is like, all right, first learning these things for myself, like remembering how to connect with nature, with source, and then as well learning how to share this with other people. So that's been a big part of my vision now, is like to embody love and to be able to share my truth, like to be loved now, and how my truth is basically like what I aim to do in every moment, because I realized that in general, it's so important to connect with the heart and be in that space of like groundedness, like that energy of like, all right, everything I'm doing right now is from a place of love. And then to share and communicate from a place of love. So that's kind of where I'm at. And maybe I could share with you like a poem called Identity that kind of, I would say, like, puts all that together.
Right.
That journey.
Before we dive into that, I just want to ask you
Yeah.
a couple questions there. So what was the draw to South America? Like why South America? You can go anywhere in the world. Why did you choose South America?
That's a great question. So Brazil originally, I always thought about it as like, all right, it's really nice weather. You have lots of nature, amazing beaches. I always heard the people were super friendly, and it was another place to like learn a language. So like all these different things, like these novelties, I was like, yeah, why not just do all of it at once? Living on my own as well, like leaving the United States, it really built my trust in myself, like my own confidence. And it was such, that experience specifically was the experience that really was the transformation for the rest of my journey.
Right. Well, I definitely feel that 100%. I mean, when I was in Asia, backpacking for about 4 months, it was like, as you said, it's like there were some really sketchy situations being in like parts of Thailand and Malaysia, Philippines, that, like, as you said, it really built that confidence in myself. That was like, all right, this is a really sketchy environment right here. I don't feel safe, but I feel confident that I can go through this, whatever happens. And we had talked a couple of weeks ago how fairly recently someone tried to rob you. And it's one of those things that while I was there, I kind of recognized, well, as long as I don't die, if someone takes my stuff, like, it's not the end of the world. Like, I can get my stuff back. And that was kind of really my biggest fear that I recognized. Like, I was just afraid of getting robbed. Like, I wasn't afraid of getting killed. I was afraid of getting robbed. And then I realized, like, well, if I do, like, all right, I lose my little laptop, my Chromebook, which is like $150. Like, that was my most valuable possession beyond my passport and the cash I had on me. So it's like, well, at the end of the day, if I lose my material possessions, it's not that big a deal. And like you said, it really helps blend that mindfulness, that confidence, and just really a whole different perspective in there. And I think that can only come when we throw ourselves into a new environment that is so unknown, from a new language, a new culture, all that type of stuff. And so my other question for you before we get into the poem is, what is your family's background? Like, what's your ethnic history? Is there any ties to South America, or where's your family originate from?
Yeah, so that's interesting. My mother, so my mom's actually, she was born in the Philippines and moved to
Okay,
the United
cool.
States when she was 3 years old. And my grandmother as well was born in the Philippines, is Filipino
Wow.
also. And she actually came to the United States too, but wasn't really like able to communicate, right? Wasn't able to speak English. And my mom never really spoke Tagalog, which
Mm,
is like the language of the Philippines
yeah.
too. So what ended up happening on that side of things, like I really lost like a lot of the, and I would say like the indigenous wisdom that was already within me, like the connection with the land
Right.
and with like spirit in general. Then on my dad's side, my dad actually he did a ancestral test, and he's about so he's half the ancestors are from Africa and half like European, like Italian.
Wow. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So yeah, so some of it's like I have a little bit of the entire world within me, and it's been so challenging sometimes, I would say, like growing up, because growing up people say like, oh, where are you from? And a lot of times people say like, oh, like if I say like, oh yeah, I'm just from Northern Virginia, and but you look at like most people at Northern Virginia, in Northern Virginia, they don't look kind of like how I mean, even as a kid, like how I looked.
Right.
So they'd be like, wait, where are you from? Like, and then like it would just be like this constant question, like, where are you really from? Like, I was like, I don't know. Like, I'm here. Like, because my mom didn't really teach me anything about the Philippines. Like, she's a little bit disconnected. I can't blame her. It's like when immigrants usually come to the United States, a lot of times, you know, we lose like the connection to like our countries that we came from too, and we just think like, oh yeah, we're all American, but no, like we do have like traditions and things that are specific to like our families and like our ancestors.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, one of my good high school friends, he's Filipino, and so when I went to the Philippines, we stayed with his family there for the 18 or so days that we were in the Philippines. And now that you say that, I definitely see the Filipino culture coming out of you. It's kind of funny. I actually didn't know that was where your mom's side was. And yeah, it's definitely, as you said, it's like you got a little bit of everything in there. I think that's a incredible balance. I mean, I'm mostly European myself. I'm Irish, German, a little bit French, so I've got mostly that that European in me. So it's cool that you've got that incredible blend. But yeah, I'd love for you to share that poem, Identity, I believe you said it was called.
Yeah, identity. So this has been a poem that was basically a recap over of my time in Brazil, like exploring my own self identity and understanding it from a spiritual perspective too. And yeah, so let me share this. So identity. I grew up not knowing my history. Where I came from was always a mystery. To this day, everywhere I go, the people I meet always want to know, where are you from? What country? Or should I say, what nationality? And then I took a second, as silent as can be, thinking about my forgotten identity. Today is a different story. I know where I'm from, a child of the earth, the universe, the sun. I walk with pride as if my ancestors were with me, a co-creator of my own destiny. I channel the spirits of my African soul as I dance through life, confident that I'm whole. I am here, as present as can be, transcending labels as I accept who is me. The words you're reading each morning that I write are a lyrical representation of a multi-generational fight. And as long as darkness exists, I will keep spreading my light. Healing the world starts with me. My medicine of choice is simply poetry. So that's identity.
Beautiful. Yeah, that was powerful. And something that I definitely find is the use of poetry and other forms of art, I think is something that we've lost really as at least in American culture, I can say. I feel like, even just in the traditional school system is like art classes are being pushed out more and more, like dance is being pushed out, art, music, like all these things are now becoming electives. It's like you don't have to take it. It's like more of a focus on the math, the science, the English, the history. And it's like, well, all those things can be valuable. Why are those deemed more valuable than art? And I think that art can be one of the most incredible ways to not only express ourselves, but to really get a feel for a human and for a culture and for, a collective consciousness, that I think that it's really important to continue to share that. And it's really been for me, I've shared the story before that I stopped drawing when I was in middle school because I had a teacher that told me one of my art projects was bad. And it's crazy to think, like, I still probably in my parents' attic somewhere have piles and piles of drawings that I did. Like that was my meditation time as a kid. I would go to my room and draw for hours on end. And I'll never forget the teacher who told me basically told me I was bad at art. And from that point forward, I stopped being an artist because I was told by an authority figure that I was bad at art. And to me, it's just like looking back is like, wow, like that kind of was a loss of just creativity in general, because that's where creativity stems from, in my opinion. A lot of it stems from art. And so really it took many years of kind of healing that artistic trauma in a sense before really when I started my own business in 2018 that it forced me to go back into the creativity, because look, I got to create a logo. I got to create everything. Like everything was me creating again. And then it kind of brought back this like childlike awe of like, holy shit, I love creating. I forgot how great it feels to create. And then it must have been about 6 or 8 months ago that I was talking with my buddy Eddie. He has an older friend who's about, I think he's 82, 84 years old, who actually had a podcast with him. He's a poet. And then I was like, oh my God, like I used to love writing poems as a kid. And it was another one of those things that I kind of forgot about, that I really enjoyed doing. And then after we started connecting, it was that, that true revitalization of the art of poetry. So I'm so glad that you shared that. And I'd love to hear just in your own words what poetry means to you and how else you express your creativity.
Yeah. Poetry is medicine for me. It's been a way for me to write my story in a way that's playful, that's light, that it puts light to my story, right? Is in general we do go through like tough times, like different moments, but it's always our choice, like how we perceive that. We can perceive that moment with like, oh, this is terrible, and like this is this is how it's gonna be forever, like it's never gonna change. Or we can really wake up and see like the impermanence of it all, right? And with the impermanence of everything, we could say like, oh, like everything's trying to go, and be sad about like the fact that everything's trying to leave. Or we can celebrate the impermanence. Like we can celebrate each moment, because we can say like, oh, this is temporary. It's
Right.
only going to last like right now. And so if it's only going to last right now, we can celebrate, this moment. And I think that's a place that I really love to live from. It's like, I imagine basically the world waking up one day and realizing like everything that we thought was really serious, we've been taking so serious, we just stopped and we just like put it down and said like, we just let go and said that, all right, today we're just gonna sing, dance, and connect with each other for once. And I think that's that's a big dream, but I like to kind of picture that in my meditation sometimes with like picturing the world just full of love and like every single person like dancing, singing, having fun. Imagine like the vibration of the earth in that moment of like freeness, of understanding like the only thing that's keeping us from like our own liberation is like our own mind, like our
Right.
own selves. So yeah, so something that I wanted to touch on too is like the inner child, something you're touching on, right? In healing specifically, a lot of times we look at, all right, you're going to heal yourself by, changing your food, sleeping, journaling, what else? Like movement. But a lot of times,
Yeah.
I think today, like I just had a dream last night and I realized that the healing that I'm doing for myself and helping others do as well is accessing their creativity, which is actually just like connecting and creating a relationship with their inner child.
Right.
And because I realized like that's where people have neglected so much in a holistic standpoint of like, yeah, play. How much like it's just so healing to just like to take an hour and write poetry. And it's also like meditation, like what you said. It's you're using your attention to focus on one thing. Or even when, for example, you're writing poetry, you're using your attention to like allow yourself to just explore all ideas at once.
Right.
So there's like the two sides of creativity. There's one side where it's like, almost like a meditation where you're focusing on one thing and you're just like, right, this is what I want to pay attention to, like my breath, like, or if you're making something, you're drawing or making something. Sometimes it's like one focus, but sometimes it's also expansive focus, like in your meditation, like you're just letting it all in, you're just surrendering. And that's also like the art process. And you think about like a child, that's like dancing,
Right.
playing, having fun, not really thinking about the time, just like really just it's loosening, it's relieving. And in that space of like poetry or dance and play, you can also find like a lot of the answers that you really want, like you're looking for, without forcing it. Like saying like, okay, I really want to understand how to, how to heal this, like this, or even like with relationships, right? Or I want to heal this relationship, or I want to heal this thing in myself. Sometimes the best thing you can do is don't worry about it.
Right.
Just be like, today you're just gonna take, a few hours and just play, like unintentional play. Just really allow yourself to explore. And so I think through travel's really unlocked that for me. The play, like the lightness of just living. There's always looking towards the future or holding on to the past. And when you let go of everything, let go of the expectations of the future, let go of anything you're holding on, it's like that's when you have this, this divine presence of like you really just like appreciate every moment and who you're with or what you're doing, because it's all like part of that play. And
Right.
we're all part of this like play together too.
And it's all about the mindset and the attention that we're choosing to look at. And it's funny, before this, I was actually talking with my brother. So he's heading back to college in a couple days. So this is his last day at work yesterday. And it's funny, we were just saying like, oh, like he enjoyed his job. He was working at a restaurant, a pretty nice restaurant. But then it was like once he knew the end was in sight, it felt like a drag, because then it was like he enjoyed the job for the X amount of months he was working there, and then he was like, then the last 2 weeks, he was like, the shifts went by longer, it wasn't as enjoyable, and we just had the conversation like, look, it's crazy just how it was all about the mindset. It was like then he was ready for the next thing. It wasn't in present. It was future. It was like, oh, now I'm excited to go back to school. So now I'm not present. And it's crazy how the same job, the same place, the same people, just by a mindset shift changes. And kind of like what you were saying is that the whole world doesn't need to change. The individuals need to change. We need to change our mindset, because the external isn't the issue, really. It's the internal. It's how we're perceiving everything. And of course, there are things like, yeah, we're dumping garbage into the ocean, but that external would change if we changed our internal. If we're changing how we're viewing this, the external is going to change itself. So it's almost could be perceived as a backwards approach to focus on the external first before changing the internal, because in my opinion, that's not a sustainable change. We need to change the internal to change the external. And it comes down to what Paul Chek says, the I, we, all. So we focus on the I first. So if we don't have control and we don't have focus on the I, we can't help the we being our inner circle, like our very close friends, our family, then the all being the collective. And so it is very interesting to me that there's a lot of focus right now on the external, with all the craziness going on in the world, and very little focus on the internal, where obviously, as discussed, is the internal is the basis of all that. And just kind of want to touch on the inner child talk that you said. The inner child is, like I gave the example of in art, there's a lot of trauma associated with the inner child for a lot of us. There's a lot of suppression of the inner child, whether we were, out playing and someone told us to shut up and sit down. Someone told us to stop doing that that's not mature, that adults don't do that. Whatever we're told and we believed and we accepted, there's some suppression, there's some trauma there. And even I can think of, when I was in first grade, this is something that my mom was coming in to be like a volunteer or something in the computer lab, I think it was. And so I was excited, and I was like kind of acting out because I was excited that my mom was going to come in. And I remember my teacher yelling at me and telling me that because I was being bad, that I wasn't allowed to go to the computer lab with my mom. And like looking back, it's like, wow, what an asshole. Like the one time my mom's coming in, she doesn't even allow me to go in there. But it's like the fact that it was like, and I remember crying. I remember being in first grade and crying and just being like, thinking like, wow, I was just excited. I was probably being a little obnoxious for the classroom setting, but I was excited and I was like expressing that excitement. And then I was told, oh, that's wrong and that's bad. I mean, it's just interesting how those little experiences that, that teacher probably has done a number of times and doesn't think anything of, but the fact that I'm still remembering that maybe over 20 years later, is crazy to think about how all those little things affect us. And so on that note, I can imagine that doing your plant ceremony brought up a lot of, thoughts, a lot of deep-rooted thoughts. So I'd love to hear about all those that came up during that experience, or maybe through poetry or meditation, or any way that you've really helped to unlock a lot of those limiting beliefs and those, those inner traumas, those wounds that we hold on to.
Yeah. I have a lot of poems on this actually that are specific to like my own spiritual journey and really allowing that to let go, like letting go of those traumas. And I would say that basically right at this moment, because of all the trauma that we're holding on to from our past and we're not letting go of, basically spiritual practice is like so key for the entire world, like for myself, but also I can see it as like because everything spiritual is dealing with everything with the internal as well, and it's not anything that you can necessarily see, right? faith is not something that you can see. It's trusting, almost like you're trusting that the universe has your back. Like you're trusting that there's something divine behind everything that's going on, right? And so I think a big part of healing the inner child, and also in this present moment, it's possible to, re-traumatize too, right? You might have something that's triggering and it brings up that trauma again. And when that trauma comes back, I feel like you either have the option to, keep it as like, okay, it's going to be re-triggered, so it's going to be something that I hold on to again, or you can take that, observe it, and like allow yourself to heal, right? Let it go when it comes up. And that's the spiritual practice, I would say, of like living with, I think it's like living with an open heart, no matter what happens, like right now, because no matter what, you're going to be triggered. You'll have like different experiences that happen in your life, and that's unavoidable as well. So whenever the trauma comes up, it's really important, I think, as well, to like, open your heart again, like allow yourself to feel the pain, so that you can open your heart again. And it's like with that open heart, you're connecting with the inner child of like, all right, let me just go and, explore the world again. And despite the pain I felt, don't close the heart, like allow yourself to like open up and continue to be creative and play and have fun and enjoy the journey. A lot of times what happens with people is like these traumas happen and then they shut down. And then when they're re-triggered, they do the same thing. They like shut down again. Right. But if you like explore the trauma, like feel it completely, you can release it and continue. It's like this constant, like almost like breaking of the heart. I would describe it as like breaking of heart. So you break your heart, and then in that space of being broken, what ends up happening is that it's like you're open to, right. You're open to the universe, and people are open to you as well, because they see that, you're just the same, like you going through that same pain.
Right.
So like,
yeah. And I want to
like compassion comes in as well into the journey.
Is Elliot Holmes. He shares a saying that every wound is a womb. So every time we have a wound and we open up, it's also a womb, as in it's a new birth. We are being reborn, and we have an opportunity to recreate ourselves, and an opportunity to, be born anew from the healing of that wound. So as we're talking about mindset, healing the inner child, expressing creativity, I'd love for you to share maybe a poem or two of something that you feel has really helped you, and just something that's helped people, and, just help yourself express that creativity. So if you got a couple poems there, we'd love to hear them.
Yeah. So this first poem I want to share. I actually wrote it last week, and it's been like for me like the last like few months have been honestly like such like up and down, like lots of changes, and I'm learning how to just like really surrender to that, and surrender to the change, but also like observe and understand my emotions through the change. And so this is the poem I called "You're Right Where You Belong." Never stop singing your song. Know that right where you're at is exactly where you belong. To liberate both me and you, stripping down the layers and masks and discovering what's true. We are one of the blessed few that get to dive into this human experience, a journey that will continue to test our resilience, yet reveal our brilliance. As we constantly remember and forget, the key to unlocking our power is to patiently sit. Take some time to do less and get still. Silence is medicine. Have faith and allow yourself to heal by creating a space where you can listen and feel. Even if you don't know how, start by asking yourself, what would love do now? And now, what about now? Embrace this moment for what it is. Give yourself the permission to live. Be love now and howl your truth. Let your voice ripple out to the youth. Be an artist, lead with art. Be a lover of the universe, lead with the heart. No matter how high we rise or low we fall, see that love is behind, below, and within us all.
Beautiful. That's wonderful. It's funny. I was actually just listening to a Paul Chek podcast yesterday, and one of my favorite quotes by him that he said again is, "What would love do now?" And so I love that you worked that in there. That's it's a question I think that many of us need to ask more often. And I think that especially with all the craziness going on in the world right now, many people are not acting from a place of love. It's coming from a place of fear and anger. And I think that obviously it's easier said than done, given the circumstances. But I want to invite everyone listening to ask yourself as often as you can, what would love do now? And take a moment. And that's not coming from a heady place. That's not coming from a logical place. That's coming from, the heart. That's coming from your spirit, from your energy. What would love do now? And that might be a difficult question to answer, because maybe that's not a place that we've acted from before. Maybe it's not a place we've consciously acted from before. So trying to become more and more conscious of, as you said in the poem, leading with the heart, asking what love would do now. I think these are questions that, need to be more broadcasted to the world. Is, we've become so focused on the head and thinking with technology. And in this podcast with Paul Chek, they're talking about how much of the technology we're creating, we already have within us. And the technology we're creating are actually a worse version of the technology we have in ourselves. But it's just that we become so disconnected from the whole system, the holistic human, the mind, body, spirit, and everything else, the energy, is that we've become so stuck in here that we think we need a lot of these technologies to do things that we can do, but we've just become disconnected from them. So I think that by really tuning into the body, tuning into the spirit, our own energy, the energy around us, things like electromagnetic frequencies, non-native electromagnetic frequencies that are disrupting ourselves. How can we ground ourselves? How can we tune back into that natural instrument that we are with all these incredible gifts? And there's no one answer to that. It's a lot of little things and a lot of little approaches. And it's funny, actually, this morning I started reading the book Atomic Habits by James Clear that you recommended to me.
Oh, that's amazing.
Amazing
book.
I think you recommended probably about 6 weeks ago. I finally got around to buying it last week, and it just came in. And so, yeah, I've gone only about 25 pages in, but it really just talks about how making a 1% shift over the course of a year, you're 37 times better than your baseline. And that's a lot. Just 1% better every single day makes an incredible difference. And if we can just start to become 1% more in tune with ourselves, with our energy, with leading with love, that's the internal change that will then change the external world. So that's a beautiful poem, and it brings up a lot. So thank you for sharing that. And if you'd like to add to that or share another poem, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, that was a great reflection, Rob. And yeah, that actually came from Paul Chek too. What would love do now? I listened to Paul. He's one of my, I would say, like, top mentors that I listen to, like, his podcast, and I read How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy. And he's basically a person that embodies a lot of the things that I've learned on my spiritual journey. So that's why I look up to him, because he's very embodied. And yeah, like, he's got so much wisdom as well. And I can't wait for the day where I can, like, either interview him or, like, meet Paul Chek. That'd be amazing.
I'll tell you, so when I did my Chek HLC2, his wife Angie taught most of it, but she ended up, because she was pregnant, she ended up getting a little sick on the last day. So Paul came in to teach the last day of HLC2, which was, not expected. And of course, he did not go what was on the schedule. He made his own schedule. We went way longer than we're supposed to. But it was as soon as he walked to the building, like he wasn't even in the room yet, and I felt an energetic shift. Like his energy is that potent that the moment he was within 50 feet of me, all of a sudden I was like I didn't know what it was, but as soon as he walked in, I was like, oh my God, that's just the energy of Paul Chek walking into the room. And I remember when I went to introduce myself, just being that close to him, it was I just felt that energy that was so strong. And there's been very few people that I've, experienced that with. Another one was Troy Casey. When I met him, not too many months later, about 4 months later. Well, I'd met him before, but this is when I really got to spend time with him and just for a week straight. So it was just when Paul walked in that room, I remember shaking his hand. Man, I got a picture with him later that day, and it's just every time I was in physical contact with him, it was this is a truly aligned human on every chakra, every energetic level. There's a lot of power to that man, and he carries himself in a way that is incredible. It's just as you said, listen to those podcasts. I don't even understand how he knows how much he knows, but he knows basically everything there is to know about the human being and the planet and health and healing. And I mean, he says himself as he looks at himself as a hermit, is that he spends so many hours researching and studying and embodying and practicing on himself that it's he just walks the walk. And as I said, it's just his energy speaks for itself.
Yeah, for sure. That's incredible. I couldn't imagine wow, how special that must be. And it's he's basically a shaman. He is a shaman.
Right.
How I see him is just he's got a lot of wisdom that he's learned from his experience, right? I think that's basically, a healer or shaman just
Right.
learns from the experience and, the study and the practice. And I think something we forget to think about is he's a lot older. He's an elder. So think about the fact that everything that we're doing in holistic health, it's a journey. It takes time. And even we have these experiences with our businesses or relationships and even personal experiences with ourselves and family that influence our journey. They help us learn and be more embodied. And so I think that's something that's really important to remember. And then also I think what you're touching on too is Troy Casey, Paul Chek, these people, what makes it so special, their energy. And I think part of it's their awareness, but also part of it's they have spiritual practices that they do every day. Right. And also they're not afraid to express themselves fully, which is just being creative too. So they're tapped into that inner child energy fully, which allows them to be all right, this is my energy. You can sense it because I'm just authentically, myself.
Right.
And I think what you were saying before is how can we do that? How can we create that? I think it all starts with the breath, awareness of the breath, or there's a lot of different names for this. A lot of people call it meditation or breath work, mindfulness. All of these practices, they basically lead to the same place. They lead us to increased awareness of an increased consciousness of what we're doing, of our choices, our actions. It allows us to embody love or embody our core values because we're more conscious of what we want to, how we want to show up in the world.
Right. It's one tool to get us to that centering place. And there's so many tools, whether it's Tai Chi or walking, meditation, journaling, poetry, the list goes on and on. Mm-hmm. Even drinking water. If you're consciously drinking high quality water, that's getting you more grounded and more closer to your truth. Eating high quality food that was cooked with love and not cooked in a state of stress, and not, it's crazy the different levels we can go to. Like, it's like we think about, oh, the food we eat matters. It was like, well, how good was the soil? How high quality was the water? Was the food cared for with love by the farmer? Was it harvested with love by the farmer? Was it cooked with love by the chef? And there's so many levels of it that it's easy to dismiss, like, oh, it doesn't really matter. But when you grow your own food, or I've grown my own food, and I am grateful for, wow, I can't believe I just grew this, and I just got to walk out to my garden, pluck this, now put it on I'm thinking about my Swiss chard, so that's what I'm envisioning. And I put it in the pan with a little coconut oil or some grass-fed butter, and then throw some eggs in there. The best one was I had them from my uncle's farm, or not farm, he has chickens, my uncle's chicken coop, and just thinking like, wow, like this meal. And then I had some local sea salt. I was like, wow, this meal is all made locally by people I know that care about these animals and about these plants. And it's a really cool experience to recognize, like, as I was eating that meal, it was different. It was different. And I don't really know how to describe it other than it was different. But there's definitely an energetic exchange that is happening with everything we do on a regular basis. And it comes back to that mindset, like we were talking about earlier, is that how we show up for the world. And I think the best example I can give is, I always share this, is like, if you're in a classroom, like think high school, you're at your desk and someone walks in and they're all pissed off, they have a dark cloud hanging over them, the whole energy of the classroom shifts. All of a sudden everyone's just call it normal, average energy, kind of baseline. And now you come in and everyone's like, whoa, what's up with this person? And then you kind of get a little timid because, like, I don't want to piss them off, or you get sad because they're sad if they sit next to you. And that energy is contagious. And it was like, really, when I was doing some of my Reiki training, that it was really feeling that. And I remember I could go over and be like, oh, did you have like a knee injury? Just by feeling their energy. And they'd be like, yeah, how'd you know that? And it's something that's hard to explain with words. And I think that's part of why it's very easy for modern science the average modern head thinker to dismiss energy. But it's like, I couldn't really explain why I knew that they were having or had some knee issues. It was like the energy just kind of felt like clunky, and, it wasn't smooth. And again, like, to the average person, it's like, oh, it just sounds like some bullshit, like this dude is making up. But it's like, experiencing that really made me aware of how important it is to tune in with our energy, and how energy truly can heal, and we can manipulate different objects and different people and environments simply with the energy that we're putting out there. And it's really something powerful, and something that I'm constantly trying to be more mindful of, is the energy that I put out, because obviously that's going to affect myself and everyone around me.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Like that. It's like energy is like, the universe is a flow of energy, and we're kind of in this pool, like flowing through this pool.
Right.
And it's like, so mindfulness is basically, I would say, the vocabulary, like, because we were talking about poetry, right? It's basically the word for the 21st century of spiritual practice, I think, with connected like research and science behind it. So I think it's such a powerful thing. And like, listening to people like Ram Dass and Tara Brach talk about, their practices, like, Ram Dass passed away, but his audio lectures, like, he's talking about basically mindfulness too. And he's talking, like, all these spiritual practices are basically about that. And then on the point with food, it's like, something we don't really think about is, like, with every single thing, we're creating a relationship. Just like when we're speaking, I'm listening with you, and we're creating this relationship. So imagine everything is like, we're creating a relationship. So imagine like everything's like your mother or yourself or your father, right? And so every single moment, so when you're eating food, for example, imagine you're eating yourself, like,
Yes.
in the sense of like there's this respect, there's this
Right.
relationship. So a lot of people see like food as like, okay, this is just energy I'm putting into myself.
Calories, just
But
calories. That's all
just
it is.
calories, yeah, it's just
Right.
calories. No, it's deeper, because right in that point, right before you consume that food, and when you're consuming, you're putting the energy, like, that source, like that divine thing, like that energy back into you. But also think about this, that all of your food had water in it, so you're creating a relationship with water, and water is like such a divine energy too for our planet. um, if you're eating animals, that animal had to be slaughtered, like be killed. Even if it's a plant, like the plants were killed too,
Right.
to like, So you're eating literally these things that are dead, and we have this fear of death. Well, we have a relationship with death that's not so, healthy. But every day we're like consuming death too. So if we create a relationship around the food, it's almost like that's like I feel like the ultimate step of, you know mindfulness around our food that we're consuming. Create a relationship with whatever you're eating, just like you would create a relationship with like a partner or
Right.
with your family. And but then you also, it makes us observe this, right? Because like, how is our relationship with ourselves?
Right.
How is our relationship with our family? Because then like that relationship goes to like our food, to our water, to other people. So it's like a lot of my work has been really like focused on, relationship, like, and mindfulness around it, awareness around the relationships that I'm creating in my life, which starts basically with myself.
Right. And how about this? How about we are the food? We are the food. As we're about to eat that food, it is about to become part of us. It's about to fuel our muscles, fuel our brain. And so the way I see it, and then when we die, we go into the soil and probably something will grow out of our corpse. So it's like, you want to go that far into death in life, like you said, death isn't a bad thing. I think that we, as a Western culture at least, have really developed this notion that death equals bad. Like death equals bad was like, well, no, that's just kind of a natural process of life. And just like the yin and yang is, you need one to have the other. If nothing ever died, everything would die because it would just be overpopulated. There'd be so much competition that, I mean, even I think trees are the best example. Is they drop their leaves in the winter because if they held on to them, they would die because they wouldn't be able to focus on their core. They had to let go of the leaves, which help them grow in the summer and the spring. And then in the fall, they let those go so they can go inward. And it's that cycle. And so I think that it's really important to recognize that whether you believe that we are all connected in the divine and in our energy or not, I think it's safe to say that the food is becoming us. I think that we can all agree on that to some degree, that the food and the water I'm about to put into my body is about to become part of me. So that's one thing that, again, my friend Ed Madden, he always says is that before he drinks water, and it's a practice I try to embody, he says, I love you, thank you. And he says, there's like, yeah, that probably looks pretty freaking weird to the average person to be saying that you love and thank your water, but it's like, this water is becoming me. This already is me. Like this could be, part of me from one time I peed or cried and it evaporated. Now it's rain clouds and now it's back here. So it's like, or however you want, this could be you. This could be you. So I'm saying, I love you and thank you. And then I'm putting that into my body. And beyond just that, whether you believe that or not, taking that moment to be mindful, to put ourselves in a state of calm, of presence, whether you believe in the connectiveness of everything or not, just taking that moment to, pause, express gratitude and love before putting something into our body that's one thing I'm not a religious person, but that's one thing I do really appreciate about religion is how they do a prayer before a meal. And again, I don't adhere to any one religion. I think there's lessons learned from all of them. But I really appreciate that aspect, that they take time to, a lot of people hold hands as they say the prayer. Like, it's just that connectiveness and that gratitude and that love and appreciation that I just think is so important. And it's a practice that I am continuing to, you know, focus on. Is a lot of times too is, again, I feel the energy of my food. I'll put my hands over my food, express my love and gratitude before I eat, and, you know, invite it to become me and accept it into myself, which, and we're getting a little woo woo for some people here, but, you know, that's how I feel.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely connect with that for sure. Food is something special, and also sharing those moments, like what you're saying, with people is one of my, I would say, like, it's like the simple pleasures of life is just being able to share food and share meals with you know, those that you love, especially when the food is like nutritious, and you know, you're very connected to where it came from, you're connected to like how you cooked it. There's this overall sense of like awareness that what you're doing is like healing yourself with the food,
Yes.
with the presence of other people, with family, with community. It's
Everything.
me.
It's
Yeah,
really
it may.
everything.
Well, that, and that's like the key to, like, you know, the spiritual, I think, not even just spiritual practice, it's just life, right?
Yes.
Like life in general is realizing that each moment is special. And
Well, I want to jump in here real quick while you say that,
yeah,
because I think that's a piece that people have a hard time getting in touch with, because some people say, "Oh, I'm not spiritual." It's not about being spiritual. It's about life. So I'm
it's
glad
life,
you
yeah.
said that, because that's what it is. It's not about expressing gratitude and love. Isn't being spiritual. That's just, you know, that's just being a happy, healthy person. That's just life. So I'm really
Hmm.
glad that you touched on that. So I just want to throw that in there.
Yeah, it's life. It's like, we came to this earth, like, you know, to have this human experience, to remember how to love ourselves and love others, love our family, you know, create relationships. I would say, like, that's the, you know, for me, the part of being love is just like, you know, realizing that love isn't necessarily just like, you know, this action always. It's not always just an action. It's also like, you know, the material, the energy that we're in. And during one of my ayahuasca experiences, one of my ceremonies, I realized this too. It's like, you know, to be present, to be in presence is like to be in love. So if you're in the present
Yes,
moment,
I love
you're
that.
already you're
Yes.
already in love, like, with the universe. You're in love with like spirit. And so if you're present in any moment, it doesn't matter who you're with, like, you're already experiencing like this moment to the fullest. And so I think if there was like a goal like in life, right, I would say something that we can shoot for is just being present with every moment, and with other people, with ourselves. And it's probably the biggest challenge as well, because we're programmed to look into the future, or we're programmed to be like, hold on to the past, and those two things just take us away from just being here, like, right now. And yeah, that's like what my journey is like kind of showed me, is like, okay, this is everything, in the sense of like, if I am present with the ups and downs, and I can observe everything without being too judgmental, and just have that perspective of gratitude and appreciation, then it really doesn't matter what exactly happens. I'm just kind of being the observer of this journey. I'm really just allowing it to unfold itself. And that's how I see, that's presence, right? Presence is kind of like allowing each moment to unfold as you arrive into the moment.
Absolutely. Well, actually, I was just finding this page here that made me think of that in
Mm-hmm.
the book Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza. So I don't know if you can see that. That's
Yeah.
basically showing that when you're in the present moment, your energy is centered and it's whole. And as you start to go off to the past and the present, or the past and the future, you're draining yourself. You're pulling yourself. You're becoming out of alignment, and you're not living from that place of love. And so I want to just read this little passage here. If where you place your attention is where you place your energy, the moment you put your attention on familiar feelings and memories, you are siphoning your energy into the past and out of the present moment. In the same way, if your attention is constantly on all the people you have to see, the places you have to go, the things you have to do at a certain time, in your known familiar reality, then you are siphoning your energy out of the present moment and into the predictable future. So, to me, like you said, is kind of just coming full circle with everything we talked about. It really comes down to having the mindset and the intention to be present in every moment, and that is love. Because anytime that we are angry, upset, sad, usually that's not being present. Usually that's a result of thinking about the past or projecting into the future. And when we're in the present moment, like you said, that is love. Being present with someone is expressing love. If you're with someone and you're thinking about all your to-do list later, that's not being present. That's not being in a state of love. If you're dwelling on the past and you're not being present with someone, that's not being love. And I think that's one thing that I try to do with my partner, and just, with as many people as I can, is just not be on my phone. It's like, when I'm alone, I'm working. Like 99% of the time when I'm alone, I'm working, but I love that.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, kind of like Paul Chek, like I have a little hermit in me that I like to work and I like to learn and read and do all these things. But when I'm with people, I'm present. So if I'm by myself for 5 days straight, I'm probably working 5 days straight. But then as soon as I'm with someone, I'm present with that person. And I think that was something that was very difficult for me to make that transition to. Being someone who is driven and kind of has a little workaholic in me, is that I felt I always needed to be doing and doing and doing at the expense of being present and being in a state of love. And so it's really just interesting as we've come full circle here. It's just, mindset is where it starts. We need to focus on ourselves, because the energy we put out there comes from us, our immediate environment. Like I said with Paul Chek, his energy changed the room. Like that negative person in your classroom in high school, they changed the energy of the room. And so by leading by love and expressing love and gratitude anytime we can, I think that changes everything. I really do believe that that's where all major change is going to stem from, is from with ourselves. So we could talk about this for probably about 16 more hours. So I'd love for you to share that one more poem, and then we can.
So this poem touches on that exact thing. So the fact that this change happens in space, right? Think about where we're at in the world. We're on Earth, and we're just on a blue planet floating through space as well, floating through the universe. But at the same time, we are as well on that planet, floating through the space too. And we've been programmed to think that, do more, or try to do more. Or instead of saying, what would love do now? We say, what should I do now? And we create these shoulds and expectations. And so basically this poem is about, doing less and creating space. So I'll read it. And so create space. Before you do anything, create space for yourself to just be. Sit down, get still, and give yourself the clarity to see. And realize that we are just like the trees. We need to plant roots in order to thrive and ground ourselves to what keeps us alive. Before we can all be free, we must create space for ourselves to breathe. Breathe. Just breathe. Yes, please. Just breathe. Exhale to let go. Inhale and feel your Holy Spirit flow. This is all you ever need to grow. And in the process of that, you get to know the divinity behind your entire existence. See, you are composed of the same elements of a star, and you don't need to travel very far to appreciate everything that you already are. Slow down and take a break from this never-ending race. The answers will come through. You just need a little space.
Beautiful. Yeah, the breath is what it stems from. creating space and just being present. That was kind of my big takeaway, is that it's not always about doing more. Sometimes being present is doing more. In a sense, it's doing more than what we would be doing otherwise.
Exactly.
It's very it's kind of a brain twist, but it's funny.
Yeah, you could just like throw that to every person, like, all right, if you actually do less, you're going to do so much more today.
Right.
Like, just be like, all right, choose a few things that you're going to do today and just focus on those. And and it's like, you're going to do more today by doing less. Like, literally, that's how I feel in life at the moment.
Well, it's funny because there was a while where I had on my whiteboard, you can see over there, it's kind of hard to point on this thing. It's reversed. But on my whiteboard, I had a huge to-do list every single day. I had like 10 plus things that I was going to do that day. But then it was like, it felt like a chore. And like the whole point of me starting my own business is obviously to help people and to, have that freedom. But I found myself, I was putting myself into like a job. I was like, well, these are the tasks I have to do today. I'm going to do this at this time, this at that time, yada, yada, yada. But since then, making that shift, it's really been a matter of, all right, so I'm going to have a couple major tasks I'm going to accomplish today. But beyond that, I'm going to leave space. And I feel like the leaving of space has really not only made the process a lot more enjoyable. And of course, there's days now where I don't get as much done, but that's okay. Because then I'm not stressing myself, I'm not straining myself, and then the things I do, I'm doing better. So it's like maybe I am doing less. That could be true, but I'm doing the things I am doing better. And on top of that, it also is creating the space that maybe today I only worked for 2 hours and I wanted to work for 8. But now the next day I have the energy to work for 10 hours or 12 hours of really intentional present work. So it's not always about the quantity, but in my opinion, it's more about the quality. And that's what I really love about being, a holistic lifestyle entrepreneur, I'd say is the best way to put it, is that it's okay if I only work a couple hours a day. And it's okay if I work 16 hours the next day. It's as long as I'm doing it from a place of presence and not doing it from a place of stress. That's where, to me, things really can change and really be created. And allowing that space, I think, is not only important, I think it's essential to continuing to grow as a human being and grow my business. Because as soon as I get myself into this, I got to post at this time, I got to post at that time, I got to post a blog post, I got to do X, Y, and Z. Now it's like I write the blog post or I create the post, but it's not good. Because I just felt like I had to do it, and I forced myself. So it is just a crazy balance, and it's just a mindset game, like we said, and it really comes down to asking what would love do now. And again, part of what I love to do is work. So sometimes the answer is to work, and that's great. And we all need to work, obviously, to put money and food on the table, but I love, all of our conversations we had here. I'd love to give you the final words and how people can get in contact with you. Because as I said, we could probably go for about 16 or more hours having these conversations. And I'm sure there'll be many more that we share with people. But we'd love to just give you the final words if you want to recap anything and just kind of share how people can get in contact with you or any projects you've been working on.
Yeah, just recapping what you were saying about the space. It's basically creating from that space true abundance, and not just material wealth, but true abundance of time and energy and space is really key. And it's because from that space we're not only growing materially, we're also growing spiritually. And spiritual growth is, in my opinion, it's like everything. So a big part of my vision, my mission is like basically to be loved now and how my truth. So a part of that, I have a community called the Wolfpack on Facebook, and anyone that's interested can reach me on Instagram at the Soulfull Poet. So that's like the soul, like, soul, spirit, and then full with 2 L's, poet. So the soulful
I'll
poet.
put this link in the description box if anyone didn't catch this here. I'll put the links there.
Yeah, so you can connect with me at the Soulful Poet. At the moment, I'm also doing Saturday morning meditations on Zoom, and that's been such a really fun flow as well. Like I share a little bit of poetry. Um, we do meditation, sometimes like qigong, sometimes dance, like a lot of different meditative movements. And besides that, I'm creating my own one-on-one coaching program at the moment, and really diving into some of the practices and things that we discussed today, like mindfulness and how to be mindful around your life and also around your business. Like all these things are really relative at the moment. I'll also be doing a 2-week challenge in September called Rooting into Presence. And so rooting into presence is about, finding basically practices to help us, get back to that level of peaceful state in our life. When everything's really chaotic, what can we do? What are the exercises that help us like come back to love, like what you said, Rob? And yeah, there's just a lot of things going on right now for me. And but I realized that if I can share these practices, if I can share mindfulness and conversations with people in every moment I can get, like I think that's all I can really do in the sense of like doing in this world. And for me, it also helps me just be and embody those core values of like love and gratitude that um, are so important to me. I would say it's like that's my number one priority, is like just to embody my values. And yeah, so it was amazing, also amazing conversation, really just like going through so many different things with you, Rob. So I really appreciate you for holding the space, creating the space for all of our conversations. And it's been amazing just to share with you and listen, because you have so much wisdom as well. And I feel like the energy, right, the energetic flow is constantly like with us. I feel it's like, okay, you say something and then it inspires me, and then I say something, and then it's just like this increase of energy,
Right.
which is really beautiful. And that's kind of like what I aim for in all of my interactions with the world and with people. Is like, all right, we share this energy, but in the same time, we're growing together.
Right.
It's not like I'm taking energy from you and like you're taking from me. It's like we're like sharing and growing together, and it's so beautiful to have that space to just share energy, share these words and insights. So really appreciate you for that, Rob.
Absolutely, my friend. Yeah, and the way I see it is we're building a brick house, and you lay a brick, I lay a brick, and we're just laying bricks on top of each other and just growing and growing every time. And that's why I was super stoked that we were able to, really come together and record a conversation, because I feel like we have these incredibly powerful conversations, as we mentioned earlier, just about every week. And, it's part of me was feeling selfish for not sharing them with people. So I'm glad that we got this on the books here. I'm excited for, everyone listening. So as I said, everyone will check out the description box, check out Zach's stuff. We've been working together, as I said, for a number of months now. I've learned a lot about being a mindful business owner and, really implementing that and sharing that energy the best way I can with a lot of Zach's help. So as always, Zach, great chatting with you. Looking forward to chatting next week. Have a beautiful rest of your week and weekend. Everyone, thank you for listening. And Zach, we'll talk to you soon.
Oh, thank you.
Aho. Peace out, homies.
Peace.
Well, thank you for listening to this episode of the Whole Health of Rob Carney Podcast with our guest, Zach Barney. So Zach has been an incredible friend, an incredible leader, and we've really been able to mentor each other in various aspects of health and business, which has been, honestly a very cool experience. It's been a two-way coaching, in a sense. It's been I coach him, he coaches me, and vice versa, and we just are helping each other grow our own respective businesses, grow each other as human beings, and just, hold space for each other to have that opportunity for growth, both personally and, professionally. So Zach's a lot of fun to be around, a lot of fun to talk with. So I hope that you enjoyed this, and I'm going to put the links to all the cool stuff he's doing in the description box here. So if you didn't catch what he said, I'm going to put that there. He is the Soulfull Poet on Instagram, and that's where he's most active. So check that out. Check out his website, all that type of stuff, which again will be in the links below. And so this episode is brought to you by our superfood sponsors, Purium Superfoods, which, honestly, since I started working with Purium, it's been an incredible journey. My mental health in terms of energy, mental clarity, has just really skyrocketed. I feel like I've become much more productive since I started using their superfoods, and I found it's also a great way that I can, reduce my caloric intake, but also have a very high nutrient-dense profile. So by having all of the green juices, the beet juice, carrot juice, biomedic to remove glyphosate from the gut, I'm getting a lot of high-quality organic nutrition in my body, without the burden of heavy digestion. And there's a lot of studies that show that people that have the least amount of calories in actually live the longest. So basically what they're doing is they're eating superfoods that are extremely nutrient dense, so their body can absorb all those nutrients but don't have to deal with that caloric intake. So you can go to ishoppurium.com and use the code SAVINGS to save $50 off your first order, or 25% off, whatever the greater savings is. If you've ever considered working with myself, people like Troy, Ross, Seema, a lot of the other people on the Holistic Justice League, you can join our team and actually share these superfoods yourself, get your own little gift card code, and help the world be a healthier, happier place for all. So this group is going 100% single-use plastic-free by the end of this year and plastic-free by the end of 2021. So it's a lot of great community, a lot of great mentorship, a lot of great learning. Kind of similar to Zach, is that we're always teaching each other. So if you want to do that, you can go to puriumenrollment.com and use the same code SAVINGS. That will get you on our team. Then we can get you hooked up on all our Facebook groups, training modules, all that incredible stuff. And also, too, if you're looking for adaptogenic herbs and mushrooms, you can go to mushroom-revival.com. So my good friend Alex Dorr, he's the owner and founder of Mushroom Revival. We actually went to school together, college together, at UMass Amherst. We took a mycology class together, which is where we met. And so that he's been a great guy to be a part of working with, and he has the medicinal mushrooms, lion's mane for the brain health, cordyceps for energy, all that good stuff, reishi for relaxation, the mushroom of immortality. And so then we got the Mush 10, which is 10 very popular mushrooms all bundled into one tincture. So if you go to mushroom-revival.com, you can use the code wholehealth, and that will save you 15% on every single order. So every time you buy there, use the code wholehealth, and you'll save 15%. All orders over $100 get you free shipping. So stock up on those good adaptogenic mushrooms. Power that with some Purium, superfoods, greens, beet juice, carrot juice, biomedic, all that type of stuff, and you're going to be living a healthy, happy lifestyle. Healthy, I think that's a new word I just made up. So, those superfoods, great place to start. And then as it relates to electromagnetic frequencies, which you often hear me talking about, EMFs, non-native EMFs, we as humans, with plants, animals, the earth, all have native electromagnetic frequencies. So these are harmonious frequencies, but we have things like cell phones, Wi-Fi, laptops, all these things that are creating, non-native electromagnetic frequencies from technology. Those can be very disruptive to not only our health as it relates to sleep cycles especially, but also just at a cellular level. It's basically frying our cells and really dehydrating us because it's heating up all the cells in our body. So what I like to use is a group called Aries Tech. So they have transforming chips, which basically transform these non-native electromagnetic frequencies into a frequency that is more absorbable and your body knows what to do with. So you can go to ariestech.com and check that out there. They got a lot of cool information on there of how this helps, and you can use the code wholehealth to save 10% to get your Aries Tech chip or your Aries Tech Defender Pro, which basically it's a little sticker you can put on the back of your phone, and it helps to mitigate some of the negativity associated with the non-native electromagnetic frequencies. So go to ariestech.com, use the code wholehealth, and you'll save 10% of your order. So once again, you can go to iShopPurium.com, use the code SAVINGS to save $50 or 25%. MushroomRevival.com, use the code wholehealth to save 15%. And go to ariestech.com to use the code wholehealth to save 10% on your Aries Tech defending gear. So thank you so much for listening. Hope you're having a beautiful day. Enjoy the rest of your day or evening or wherever you are in the world. I truly appreciate all the love and support that you're giving me in this podcast and all my guests. So thank you again for listening, and I'll talk to you soon.